So on that note, I'm going to show you the final paper in the class, which I just posted the other day. Oops, there we go. So you have your narrative papers that are due today. I see some of you already submitted them. That's super. And I'll look for the rest of them later tonight. And of course, I'm around all day today if you want to chat with me about anything pertaining to these papers. Next week, and then the week after that, our last two modules in this class where we're reading text, we'll be reading from Emma Maris's Rambunctious Garden. So please make sure you have that text. You'll see we have a gap here in between. That is Thanksgiving. You get to chill. I promise you that Emma Maris's book is a very pleasant read, and I think you should enjoy it as a culmination to all the stuff we've been discussing in this class. And then December 10th and 17th, your final paper is due, and this is going to be an argumentative essay. Okay, we've seen a couple different types of writing. For your first paper, you did critical analysis of various style elements of the text we've read. Today, you're giving me a personal narrative essay. And then your final paper in this class is going to be an argumentative essay. Please note, the rough draft is due December 10th. I will immediately get it back to you for comments with comments and edits, and then you will submit that finally for a grade on the 17th. Okay? I'm going to go over this briefly and then see if you have any questions. Then I'm going to hand it over to Chris. So, and I'm recording this, by the way. So your final paper for frameworks is an argumentative essay. Okay? Just a note about tardiness, you have to be very careful not to submit these papers late because final grades are due soon after that. So I am upping the deduction for tardiness. So if you are running into any trouble, you must talk to me. Please, please, please talk to me. Okay. I'm looking for papers 4 to 6 pages in length, standard formatting. And as with the other papers, I look to see that your writing is clear with correct grammar. You have a concise and clear thesis that is well supported. I strongly urge that you use the services of the Writing Studio. This is a service you're already paying for. There's a roster of tutors. I believe many of them are all around the country, so they may be in your time zones. And many of them are specially trained for ESL students. Okay. And if you need any assistance at all arranging an appointment with Writing Studio, you can talk to me. I know Michelle Glenn personally who runs it, and she is willing to help if there's difficulty scheduling. When it comes to finals, just a warning, it's always a little bit challenging, or it may be challenging scheduling an appointment. So please do so sooner rather than later. So about this last paper. In this, your third and final paper for frameworks, you will advance an argument together with supporting evidence, and then consider and contend with a counter argument in order to craft a persuasive paper. Endorse and defend an argument that Emma Maris discusses in her book, Rambunctious Garden. And it does not have to be one of her own arguments, but one that she writes about or considers. She writes about various models of rewilding. And these are models of rewilding that some biologists have endorsed. Some of these are experimental versions of them. And so there's arguments for them and there's arguments against them. And so, I've asked that you advance an argument, but in so doing, you have to rebut a counter argument. Okay. Please note the elements of an effective argumentative essay. You need to have a compelling introductory paragraph with a clear thesis statement, as we've discussed. 3 or more detailed paragraphs of supporting evidence for the thesis. Quote from the authors, explain the quotes as needed, and be sure their relation to the thesis is clear. And once you've laid out the supporting evidence for the thesis, introduce a counterargument to the thesis. Effectively, you will anticipate readers' objections. You may include more than one counterargument so long as you explain them thoroughly and fairly and respond to them thoroughly and fairly. And the last point, rebut the counterargument, right? So the final element of a persuasive argument is that a persuasive paper is that you rebut the counterargument. Summarize your argument in a concluding paragraph. And this is where Chris comes in. You're required to use 3 outside sources in framing your counter argument or composing the rebuttal. I'll point this out later, but Emma Maris's book can be helpful because she will be footnoting some of the critics, which could be your counter arguments. And by the way, she will footnote the various sources in favor of the argument as well. The footnotes in general from her book can be useful to you. Now, of course, the reason I asked Chris to come today is because this is a little bit of a challenging environment and you will be having to access all your materials remotely or digitally. Okay, so I'm looking for 3 outside sources in framing your counter argument. These may include articles or reviews about Emma Maris's book. Sources may include scholarly articles or respected news sources and periodicals. And you may access these sources from the databases in our library, which you will learn about shortly. And then I would like you to include a bibliography at the end. Okay, so that when you quote from the sources, you only need to indicate in parentheses at the end of the quote the author's name or title and page number. So basically your citations for your quotes in these papers will be internal citations, internal to the text. I will not be asking you to footnote, but they have to be supplemented then by a bibliography. And I'll discuss this again in the next week. One other thing I wanted to mention to you all is I have to think about it since I did kind of change our schedule a little bit when we took a week off. But I would very much like to meet with you individually, preferably after I give you the edits to your rough draft so that we can talk about this, but maybe before the rough draft as well. I have to think about that. But I promise you, I will be meeting with each of you individually to talk about the papers as they're progressing, maybe catch up with you on your previous writing in this class, and help you navigate your research and resources going forward for these papers, that is. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Are we all good on that? Chris, do I have to make you the co-host?
I don't think so. To share, let me try. Yeah, I need to be able to share the screen. And I just shared a Google Doc in the chat, which will be what I'll be following today.
In the chat?
Yeah. Did everybody get that? You should be able to access that.
All right, I am making you co-host. I think I did it.
So you should be able to access this Google Doc. And this Google Doc has pretty much everything I'm going to cover. I might not even get to all of these things individually, but you'll have this for reference later. You can also comment on this document and I'll respond to your comments or questions later. You can put questions in the chat. Will you be monitoring the chat, Furman, or do you have?
Sure. I also wanted to just interject if I could at this. Is that okay if I say something?
Anytime.
Everybody listen, Chris is very solicitous with emails. Is that right, Chris? So that if they want to email you during the process, they can do that?
Yeah, and
I've been checking out your email in the past. So here's his email, everybody.
Yes, everybody got my, it's on the Google Doc here too.
Yeah.
My contact information. I'm also available for individual consultations if you want. And here's a link to the Calendly scheduler for that. So basic website, our website you can get to by Googling Decker Library or typing in the URL mica.edu/library. And this Google Doc I've given you kind of boils all the essentials down, what you will probably need, but good idea to know how to navigate our website. You have a search the catalog link here on the left, a find articles and media link here on the left also. Those are the 2 most important ones. You scroll down further, there's also this link to our catalog. That's what our catalog looks like. We're going to go through a bunch of examples using the catalog in a minute. The Find Articles and Media page are our subscription databases, which vary according to subject matter, media. Some are articles, some are video, some are images, some are language learning, some are reference, online encyclopedias. So Our digital library is our special collections material, like our artist books. So we have some images of some of our special collections and the MICA archive on there. Those are the main links on our catalog, on our website that you'll need to know. Under services here on the left, you'll find links to interlibrary loan, borrow from other libraries here, which is where we get materials from other libraries for you. And also scanning from the collection, which we call document delivery. So because you don't have access to our physical printed material right now, we can scan some pages from those books for you and send them to you. Interlibrary loan is where we would send a request for a book or an article to another library, and they would send us the article or send us the book, and then we could do some scanning from the book. Any questions? Just a quick overview of our website. I also have a link here to how to fully download an ebook for offline viewing. I don't recommend trying to do that because you have to jump through a lot of hoops just to get that done. What that means is instead of just reading it online, which you can do 24/7, it's a way to download it for offline viewing. I just mentioned getting stuff we don't have through interlibrary loan. You can also suggest a purchase. So if you think we should add a book or a journal or magazine, video, DVD to our collection, you can use that form to request it. And then we would notify you when it came in. Other resources that you can use outside of the library, WorldCat is a catalog of all the library catalogs. And it's a good way to see what's out there on any topic or by any author, what's out there in the world and not just in our collection. So it can be a good starting point for some research. You may be familiar with Google Scholar. There's no link to Google Scholar from Google. You have to Google Google Scholar to get to Google Scholar. But it is a Google way of finding scholarly articles, and we'll look more closely at that later. The thing I would say about this is that we have just about all the content you would find in Google Scholar in our catalog. So, but if you're more comfortable doing some searches in a Google-like atmosphere, you might want to use that. Enoch Pratt Free Library is our city library system. And as a MICA student, you can sign up for a card, even if you're not here in Baltimore. You can get an online e-card, and then you can use their databases. You can also see if your local library has an e-card, or you can get a library card from your local library and use their databases, their electronic resources. Some other sources you may be familiar with: Google Play Books, Apple Books, the Internet Archive, Project Gutenberg. These all have a lot of free materials that are usually out of copyright. The ones that are in copyright, you usually have to, you only get a preview of. So just keep that in mind, but there's a lot of good material, especially if you're looking for some older texts, classics, so-called classics. I've included some citation tips here, a link to the Purdue Online Writing Lab. That's a good site for learning the basics of different citation styles. They have kind of an automatic generator, but you can also look into the different styles over here on the left. And I've included some examples for Chicago style here, and a link to the writing studio that Furman just mentioned. They have tutors that can help you with writing. And here are some links to video tutorials that the librarians have made on some of the basics of searching the catalog, how to read a catalog record, finding material online, and searching the book arts collection. And here are some other topics that you may not be too familiar with that we're going to cover as we look at some examples. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast, too slow?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Apple Books, is that a big collection?
I don't know how big it is, but they do have some free stuff. They're trying to sell the books. You know, you'll get a lot of 99 cents to 29.99. It's a commercial site, but it's a fairly big collection. Yeah, like Google Books.
And how about Micah's ebook collection? How big is that?
About almost 200,000 ebooks right now. Yeah. So speaking of which, we'll go into some exam. Any other questions, comments? So one of the advantages of the library collections is that we buy material that is not freely available for you to access. And we buy material that we think will be useful to you and also better quality. We can't guarantee quality, but we try to collect what is um, scholarly, academic, or relevant to this curriculum at MICA. If you're doing some searches on the web and you do a search for like a question like this and you come across an article from this publisher Wiley, this looks pretty good. It's from a peer-reviewed journal, one that the library owns. But if you try and download the actual article, you will end up being asked to pay for some kind of access. The whole thing for $42 or a 48-hour access for $7. So an advantage of the library is that we have a lot of this material, which is freely available to you. I mean, we pay for it through your tuition dollars, but here's an example of the same search in our catalog. And here's a link to the database that has that article. And then you have the option of HTML full text, which would not have the images, the page images, or the PDF. You don't always have these options. Sometimes you'll have just the HTML. Depends on the publication. So this is a record and the full text of the article. Same for books. If I'm looking in Amazon and I come across a book in Amazon, again, something to buy. And then through our catalog, we call Primo, Primo, Primo. It's just what the company who makes this catalog calls it. So here's an example of an ebook. This ebook Central, the Arts, is a temporary trial that we're doing. We may get that collection. Our main collection is this EBSCOhost ebook collection, and then you can click on PDF. EPUB is a good format for phones or mobile devices. Any questions about that? So advantages that, we buy a lot of this content and make it available to you. Database subscriptions are from different companies. So the interfaces that you'll see are different. They have a lot of similarities, but the differences between databases is the content, what subject matter. Sometimes it can be multidisciplinary, sometimes very specific, like we have a database just for fashion. I mentioned full text in that last example. Does anybody know what I mean by full text? It's kind of self-explanatory, so it's not a trick question. Well, what do you think text means?
The full book, Naima says.
Okay. So all of the text of the book or the article, complete for you to read right then and there.
As opposed to what? An
As
abstract?
opposed to a citation or abstract. What's the difference? What's a citation and what's an abstract? Anybody have a guess as to what a citation is? So when you cite something for a paper, what are you doing? Are you giving the whole,
Mackenzie says a reference.
okay, a reference, and what does it include? Usually, what is the basic information that's included in a citation?
The source in which the information was found, or the information that was provided for the text.
Okay.
So some things like author, the title.
The title, when it was created, when it was published.
Right,
Perfect.
yeah, right, the publisher. And so that whoever wants to find it has that information and they can find it, right? So some of our databases will have the full text for some articles, and some of them will just have the citation. So if we just have the citation and you want that article or book, you can request it through interlibrary loan, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, good. We also, in our catalog, we have what are called open access articles and books. And open access is a relatively new thing where some authors are providing their material for free, even just as they publish it. And that content is gathered usually by an academic institution or a nonprofit organization and made available to the public. And our catalog includes a lot of open access material also. So as I mentioned, the databases differ by subject area, whether they're specific or general, the formats, whether it's video, articles, books, etc. Also, whether it's full text or a mixture of the full text and citations. And also, some are easy to use, some not so easy to use. And what advanced search features they have can vary. So our catalog is, as I said, called Primo, and it's a discovery system. And what it tries to do is bring all of the content we have access to, all of the database content, all of the open access content, all of the physical materials in the library, and bring them all together in our catalog for searching and accessing online if possible. Catalogs and databases also try to help you organize your findings and cite your sources, which we'll show a little bit of in the examples. Okay, so where do we get the catalog? Well, I've already showed you the website and where the catalog is, the databases. If you're working, you don't have to choose a database, but you can work directly in the databases. And choosing the database, again, will be a matter of deciding whether your subject matter matches what would be in the database. So for instance, this argumentative essay topic is not necessarily art related. It can be art related. So you can search, say, art and architecture source, but a database like Academic Search Premier, which is multidisciplinary, all different subjects, would be a better choice or a more likely option for finding materials. Also, JSTOR is a popular one for multidisciplinary. We have selected JSTOR collections that focus on the humanities, social sciences, which include art, but covers a lot of literature also. Okay, so how do we search these effectively? Okay, I just want to say that you got to always remember that computers don't know what you mean by the words you use in your search. They can only follow the program. They can give you the illusion of knowing what you mean, by the words you use, because the algorithms have become sophisticated at guessing but they're still just searching for words, and they're programmed to search for words in a certain way. So the words that we use for searching are very important. And I put this in bold. The words you use may not be the words the authors of books and articles use for the same idea. This is the most common mistake of researchers. They think they've got the words for the idea in their head, and they put it in the search, they put it in the catalog or the database, and they don't get results, and they immediately assume there's nothing there. Could be the words. So the more words we have for a concept, more specific, general, or related words, the better. That's why concept mapping is important. So doing a concept map on your topic, where you start with the words you know, and then try and think of words that are maybe more general or more specific, and seeing how many different levels of concepts you have can help you set up a search strategy for the databases in the catalog. Anybody done a concept map before? Know what I'm talking about?
Kenzie says no.
You want to do a quick one?
Sure.
Let's do
Can
a
I
quick
can
one.
I interject for one quick second, Chris, before I hand it back to you?
Sure.
I just wanted to try and be very specific for the students so that they, can contextualize what they're listening to here, hopefully in a way that's practical for what we're doing. So listen up, everybody. These last two books we're dealing with in this class, which I principally asked you to engage with for these final papers, these are books related to conservation, okay? So the articles you look for and wilding, or what is called rewilding, restoring wild places. So I think what that means, Chris, is that principally the students will be looking for articles, right? As opposed to books, right? I think everybody, articles is going to be useful to you, or chapters in books. We will not be using any paper books in this class, right, Chris? Because we can't wait for them via interlibrary loan. We can't go to the stacks. So any book chapters you get will have to be accessed digitally. In case you didn't hear it, interlibrary loan, you are able to request chapters of books digitally, okay? And digital text the library can get you relatively quickly. But I think these databases are going to be most useful for you as you prepare for these papers. And I indicated in the chat 2 databases that I think are especially useful for you all. And that would be Academic Search Premier and JSTOR, okay? In my experience with this assignment, these have been the most useful, okay, in providing the sources for these papers. So, and the last point that Chris was making, which we're going to talk about now, you're going to have to mix up the terms of your search. If you're looking for something, if you want to do something about like rewilding, maybe in Yellowstone, like the experiment with the wolves, you may have to try different types of words in your searches to pinpoint the article that you want to get. Okay. Chris, I have a question for you. Is there a chance that when they're searching in Academic Search Premier or JSTOR, they come across an article and the full text is not provided?
Not in JSTOR. JSTOR is all full text, but Academic Search Premier is a mixture of full text and citation.
What do they do when they find an article they want, but they can't get the text?
There is a link. It depends. Some databases have a direct link to our Borrow from Other Libraries form, or you can go back to the website and go under Services, Borrow from Other Libraries.
Okay.
And then fill out this. There's a link to there's an introduction as to what the parameters are, but there's a link to the form.
This is not ILL?
This is ILL, yeah.
It is ILL. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you find, the short of it is, and this may happen in Google search too, everybody, which I indicate as Google Scholar, I indicated in the chat, I actually like Google Scholar too. It can be useful. And so the short of it is, if you find an article that you want, but you cannot access the full text, interlibrary loan is the request form you need to use. I'll remind you of this later. And interlibrary loan, in my experience, Chris, has been pretty prompt at getting these articles to you.
Mhm. Yeah, and if you have any difficulty figuring out exactly what you're supposed to request, you can email me, and or you can also just email refer, R-E-F-E-R, @mica.edu. That's the
I'll
research
put that in
help
the-
desk. And we'll respond. Somebody will respond to you as soon as
We do
possible.
have a question in the chat here, Chris. Students get 6 free articles from JSTOR a month, right?
Our JSTOR collection should get all the articles.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're talking about, that's that paywall, that's that, anybody in the public can get 6 free, but once you got the 6, then it's over. That's why you want to go through the library. If you're going to use JSTOR directly, go through the library, and then you have access to the collections that we have subscribed to. JSTOR is a whole bunch of different collections that vary a lot in price. So we don't subscribe to the main science-based one because it's very expensive and we don't do a lot of science research at MICA. So you may get, in your 6 free on the web, you may get an article that we don't have access to. So I'll qualify that. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. That's good to know. And I think I hope you guys heard what Chris said. It's kind of an important one because, the papers you're writing for this class, these are not hard science, but they will involve some science. So, or at least reference to research and evidence. So that may be useful to you. So you may be able to find some articles on JSTOR you wouldn't get in our databases. You may be able to find them online. But otherwise, the answer to Elva's question is that the JSTOR database through MICA, you have access to everything there all the time. And I also indicated this in the chat, but if you are all off campus, when you are off campus trying to access these databases, you must log in using your MICA password.
Yeah, you'll be prompted to log in. If you go through if you're here on the A to Z databases list and you go through this, or if you click on a link in our catalog to an article in one of these databases like JSTOR, you'll be prompted to log in. All right, I'm going to forego the concept map in the interest of time. You'll see why it's important as we look at some of these examples. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some effective search techniques and introduce that with something you're probably familiar with, and that is Google. Anybody do a Google search before on this? Anybody? A couple people done Google searches? Okay. So when I don't know if you've ever heard of Boolean logic. Computers rely on Boolean logic, and also search engines do too. When you type a search into Google, Google is going to assume with this search that you want all of those words to appear in the website, the web page that they bring back to you in the results. So we got about 2.5 million results here. But what you don't see is that the word "and" is being put between all of these words. You just don't see it. If I did this, what do you think is going to happen? If I'm doing cats or dogs or kangaroos or elephants or mongooses, what do you think will happen?
Anybody have an idea?
Well, let's see. Now I have 1,760,000. So what was the difference? The web page can have any of these terms or any combination of these terms. Cats and dogs, cats, dogs, kangaroos, cats, mongooses, okay? This is Boolean searching, and this is what's happening. You don't have a choice of whether you use Boolean searching or not. You only have a choice of how much control you have over it. And most of the time, a search engine is making those choices for you. So part of learning to search effectively with our catalog and databases is learning how to take more control of the search. Google does have a advanced search. you go to settings in the right corner and you click on advanced search, this is their form for Boolean searching. Here's an advanced search I did as an example where I have used Pleistocene rewilding as a phrase. I didn't have to put quotation marks around it because they are going to treat it in this form as a phrase. You see over here to the right where it says, if you were using the search box, you would put it in quotation marks. That's a phrase search. It's going to search it exactly as it appears in the order it appears. Then I said, I want these words: effectiveness, good, bad, helpful, beneficial. And what it's doing is it's putting those ors in between, just like I did manually in that other search. Also, there are a whole bunch of options in Google Advanced Search, but the domain or site is a nice one because you can determine what domain you or website to search in. So I've chosen the .org domain because I'm looking for more kind of nonprofit, less commercial websites. And notice here's a JSTOR, here's a link to a JSTOR article. But there's also some, like here's the National Academy of Sciences, their view on rewilding or Pleistocene rewilding. So I'm pointing that out because Google, you're familiar with, I'm sure, uses Boolean searching and phrase searching, advanced search techniques. In our catalog, we can also do phrase searching by just putting quotation marks around a phrase or a title of a book, or title of an article, a name. Okay? The initial search in our catalog is for everything that we have access to in print or online.
What's the point of the quotation marks?
It's a phrase search, which means that the catalog or the search engine is going to search for those words in the exact order without any. If I didn't use quotation marks, it would assume that it can look for garden and rambunctious, but they don't have to be together and they don't have to be in that order.
Got it.
Okay. In the Academic Search Premier database, it can do the same thing. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be about Emma Maris's book, but it will search that phrase and it can be a good technique for focusing your search. You can also do field searching, and here's a combination of phrase searching and field searching. So field searching is, in our catalog, we have an advanced search feature, and I have chosen to search for rambunctious garden in the title field of items in our catalog. So all of these results have the phrase rambunctious garden in the title. JSTOR also. Notice in these results, we're getting a lot of reviews of the book. I can also search multiple databases at the same time. And this is a phrase search in the subject field. So it's showing you the command here, SU, but by selecting a field of subject terms and looking for rambunctious garden in that field, I'm likely to get more relevant results. Also, when you're in a record in the database, you can look through the fields of the record, like the subject terms, and you can see reviews and products. Rambunctious Garden, the book that Furman assigned, is linked here, and I can go to everything in the databases that have that reviewed. So this is a quick way to find reviews. And this next example is that search of that field. So full text searching is another advanced technique. So you can actually tell the database that you want, and you would have to in this case, that you want to search not just the record for the item, in other words, that citation information we were talking about, but actually search the full text of the article for that phrase. Here I did Pleistocene rewilding as a phrase search. And I told the database to search the full text. Let me show you how to do that. So I put in my phrase in quotation marks. I go down here and I say, also search within the full text of the articles. So this Pleistocene rewilding will appear in a phrase in somewhere in these articles. It may or may not be relevant, but you can find some interesting things sometimes because even though an article may not be about that topic, if it mentions it, it might have something interesting to say about it.
Sorry, is that JSTOR?
This is Academic Search Premier.
So are there examples here of they can see the difference between a full text or not?
Full text search or?
Well, these
yeah.
are all full text. Is that correct?
This is a search, a full text search. Yeah. So if, let's do the search again. If I didn't indicate full text, this first one is not full text. And here's the request through interlibrary loan button here.
That's very convenient. So you guys see that if you don't get the full text, you can click on interlibrary loan right away.
This form looks a little different from the one from our website, but it does get sent to the same place as the form on our website. Oh, this example is full text searching. This is not full text. This is not a full text search. I'm sorry. But then this, let's see, we have 16 results, but this is a full text search, this example. And we now have should have gotten more results. Maybe I got the links wrong. One thing I wanted to point out is that if you look at this first record, there are a lot of other terms mentioned just in the abstract, which is like a summary of the article. So you can add these to your concept map or do searches with these different terms, or you can put them together with that Boolean OR operator. Here's an example of doing a subject search in our catalog. So in the advanced, I told it to lurk in the subject field, and I gave the term rewilding. So all of these results are online. If I click this expand my results button here, then I will get results that are not necessarily full text online. So we're back to that idea of, well, if this is one that I'm interested in and it's not full text online, then I can click this borrow from other libraries link and it will take me to the borrow from other libraries form. So the expand my results button or checkbox here switches you back and forth between what's online and citation available possibly through interlibrary loan. Use these filters here on the left to say, limit to what's available online and peer reviewed. Anybody know what is meant by peer reviewed? A peer reviewed journal?
Hello, anybody know peer review?
I'm assuming something that's gotten feedback from other peers before being published or after it was published, so you can see reviews from everybody else.
Excellent. Yeah. So experts in the field.
In this case, it's actually before, right? Peer review is, in this case, it's before. So if it's an article written in a biology journal, other biologists have reviewed it before it is released. So it's different from book review.
Oh, right. Yeah. So,
But it means, in short, Kendall, Kendall indicates it. In short, peer reviewed means credible source. Okay, means you have a good source there on your hands. This is not Huffington Post or Breitbart.
yeah, peer review is, for the most part, I would say, an indicator of a good source. But peer review also has its critics.
Mhm.
Can also be, reinforcing the status quo, et cetera, things like that. But in general, it's usually a good indicator of a source you can rely on.
Mhm.
So use these filters on the left to focus your results. And I also want to point out, let's see, I'll get to the citation searching. Notice that there are these little orange arrows here. What these do is link you to sources that are either cited in that article or cited by. So if I want to find sources that cite this particular article, I can click on these up orange arrows, and it will give me everything that has cited that article. So if you might find articles that talk about the content of that first article. Likewise, if you click on the down arrow, you get to see what is cited in that article. So in terms of the timing, what's cited in is the past, what is cited by goes to the time period after that article was published. You can also do a newspapers search in our catalog. Newspapers was mentioned as a good source for this paper. We subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, Christian Science Monitor, and the Baltimore Sun. This was a newspaper search for a phrase rambunctious garden. Notice that the first article is about a garden hose, so it's not necessarily relevant to the Emma Maris's arguments. You can go to our ProQuest National Newspapers database directly, which looks like this. This is linked from our A to Z databases page. And it will search all of our national newspapers, and it also includes blog posts, blogs, and podcasts. In Academic Search Premier, as an example, you can go to this cited references button here. And you can type in a source title, click search, and it will tell you, it will give you the option of clicking on articles that cite it. I'm clicking these boxes that are available. Then hit find citing articles, and it will find all the articles that have cited Rambunctious Garden. Google Scholar also. These are, I searched Rambunctious Garden, and then I clicked on the articles citing it, and these are all of the articles that cite Rambunctious Garden in Google Scholar. Boolean searching again. Here's an example in Primo where we've taken different concepts and put them together. So this is a little more complicated, but it's a good thing to learn how to do. I've taken 3 concepts: the Pleistocene or trophic. Notice I put the capital "or" in here. And this concept of rewilding or reintroducing or restoration. And the concept of good or beneficial or safe or positive. So I've taken 3 concepts and ANDed those together. In other words, I'm saying all of these 3 concepts have to be represented in the search results. But for each one of these concepts, here are the words that can be used in any combination, one or the other or together. Then I can take these results and I can narrow them down in any way I want with these filters. The advanced search is here. So this is what I've been using. You can choose a field. You can do different concepts. You can add a new line. You can even tell the catalog if you want to look in books or articles. So you have a lot more control by using advanced search. In JSTOR, they have a special feature. It's called a proximity limiter. So this search was where I've taken the concept of rewilding. So let me show you. In a JSTOR advanced search, put in the term rewilding, and I choose here, instead of and or as an operator, I choose near 5. I could choose near 10 or near 25 and put in the word conservation. I could or another term. This is just a simple example. And so what do you think it's going to do?
Wait, what's near 5? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so near 5 means, what do you think that's going to do? It's if I'm going to take this word and I'm going to ask for this word to be near 5, it means that it's going to look for any instance where these 2 words are within 5 words of each other. So that's a way. That's one way of trying to get more focused, relevant results. JSTOR is unique in having that, what we call a proximity limiter. And so you can see there's a lot of debate going on here in these articles about rewilding.
This is very useful, everybody, for these papers, trust me.
So all of these examples are here in this Google Doc I shared. So I know I kind of blew through them pretty quickly. I encourage you to play around with these ideas and
Can you send it to me, Chris, and then I'll post it on Canvas?
yeah, I can
Because
send
I
it
don't
to you
think
again.
I'm able to save the chat here after recording this.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll email it to you right away. Next, of course, when you do get a set of results, you want to evaluate it. And we talked about peer review. What are some other things you look for in a source that makes it "quote unquote" good? I always like to put a plug in for relevance. I mean, that's so basic, people don't think of it, but a relevant result, something that actually is about what you're looking for. But what other things do you look for? Like when you do a search on the web and you're looking over different sources, what's going on in the back of your mind as far as whether a source is good or not? What do you think of?
What do you think, everybody? What indicates a good source to you? Credible source. Any suggestions? Ava says it has its own citations. Mackenzie said it is unbiased.
Okay, how do you tell if something's unbiased?
Oh, and Naima says being able to find the author. Right. How do you know it's unbiased? Yeah. Good question. It cites facts and not opinions, Mackenzie says.
Is there a context where you might want opinions, like maybe for this essay? I guess it depends on what your focus is.
A good question. So how about this, class? Are there any indicators of credible opinions, that these are opinions that you should take seriously? Anybody have any ideas about that? Mackenzie says depends on the situation. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it depends on the context.
How about good? How about the credentials of the speaker? Okay. If this is a noted biologist, for example, you might want to take his or her opinions very seriously.
Okay, so that's authority.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If it's, I don't know, if it's Ed Sheeran, no, don't listen to what he has to say about biology.
No bias. What about the timing of a particular article? Does it matter whether something was published yesterday versus 100 years ago? Again, it would probably depend on the context, right? But something to consider.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, guys, this idea of rewilding, for example, is a recent idea. So anything within the last 10 years or 15 years is good for you. But if you find something from the Victorian era, that might not work.
Unless you can make that really interesting. It could be very interesting. So yeah, we've got a pretty good list here. What about Wikipedia? Can you find an author in Wikipedia? Is Wikipedia a good source? It has citations, right? So
What do you guys think about Wikipedia? How could you use Wikipedia, or could you use it at all? Let's see what they say in the chat. I'm watching the chat, Chris.
thank you.
Anybody have any ideas about the value or worth of Wikipedia?
I feel like you can use
Elva
Wikipedia to
points
find
out-
sources.
Sorry, Kendall?
Oh, so I was saying, I feel like you can use Wikipedia to find like other resources, but as far as like trying to base a writing like just strictly off of Wikipedia, I don't find it very helpful because anybody can, usually go in and change things around in there.
Yeah, and Elva agrees with you. She says Wikipedia has sources on the bottom, the references are on the bottom, and in general, you should check the references. I do not recommend you ever quote from Wikipedia, but you may check out their references. I don't know. Do you want to have to add to that, Chris?
I agree. It depends on the context. If you're doing a paper on Wikipedia,
Yeah.
one thing. But in general, yeah, the references can be very helpful, and it can be a great starting point for just getting the gist of a particular topic and the key people that you can use to jump into some serious research in library catalogs and databases.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a pretty good list. Does anybody have any questions or comments on everything I went through? I tried to give you a lot of examples that you could refer to later. Again, get to know that advanced search. It'll help you not just with this class, but other classes, and do concept mapping. Whenever you have a research, some research you're doing, and keep that concept map going as you go along, and you find other words for the topic, words other authors are using, phrases authors are using for that concept that you just never would have thought of, because that is the most common problem. Check out the different the records for a particular item and see what the subject terms are. These are what we call controlled vocabulary. So the database itself decides, okay, this article is about biodiversity. And so it tags all of any article about biodiversity with this subject term, so you can quickly link to it. And then author supplied keywords are also good, because the author is kind of giving you their tags that you can jump off of into other research. Okay, any questions, comments? And oh, the cite function, there is a cite function in most databases and our catalog. So for instance, looking at this newspaper article, I can go to this citation button and I can choose a particular style and then copy that citation to the clipboard and paste it into a bibliography. Just keep in mind that this citation is almost always for the references page or the works cited page, not for any kind of in-text or footnote format. Oh, I wasn't sharing my screen. Thanks for noticing, everybody. So see, there's the citation button for this record.
Ah.
And then copy to the clipboard, and you can choose a style over here. See, that's why I made that Google Doc, so you can.
Can I see it in Chicago? This is Chicago.
This is Chicago, right?
Yeah. In case I did not make it clear in your directions, guys, but I'm going to ask you to do Chicago style. I'll tweak that on your directions.
Oh, perfect, because that's the example I used up here in the citation tips. So you can, I have links to a sample paper in Notes Bibliography or author date. Do you prefer author date, Furman?
Author date, I'm sorry.
Versus footnotes in Chicago style?
I'm just going to have the bibliography.
Oh, okay. And then there's quick guides actually from the Chicago style website.
And just so you all know, in case you aren't familiar, Chicago style, MLA Turabian, this largely refers to the format of the material, the bibliographical material, author, publisher, translator, page, etc.
Okay, I think I'm done. Nobody has any questions.
Well, thank you, Chris. That was a lot of stuff, and I think I will be reviewing it with the class again. And I'm going to make his PowerPoint available for you on our Canvas site. And I think I think I'm going to think also about your deadlines for these drafts, because I think I may want to stretch this process out for you guys to give you ample time for this kind of research, okay? Since these resources are largely new to you, maybe not so much, but for some of you, these resources will be new. And I think I may try to schedule a meeting with each of you individually before the drafts are due, so that I can go over this research process with you all, okay? But here I'm just thinking aloud, and you'll hear more from me. But the short of it is, you will be reading Emma Maris's book for next week. Put all this stuff about the research to the side, focus on the material of the book itself, and focus on what you find interesting. because ideally you will write a paper at the end of the class on what is interesting. And I promise you, there's a lot of stuff in Emma Maris's book that is very interesting. I see that Chris picked up on a term I had included in the directions called Pleistocene rewilding. And we kind of ran with that, but no, we didn't really talk about what that means to anybody. You're about to hear a lot more about it, but does anybody want to guess what Pleistocene rewilding suggests? Anybody know what Pleistocene refers to?
Well, shall I go to our Encyclopedia Britannica?
Sure.
Let's do it. Okay, so back to the A to Z databases page. We have an Encyclopedia Britannica.
Well, goddamn, look at this. Unbelievable. I never use this thing.
Always good to spell correctly.
Well, that's a mouthful.
Long time ago.
Look at the second paragraph, the Ice Age. That will do nicely. So, guys, one of the rewilding projects that Emma Maris will look at and consider is, which is an existing and actual rewilding project that's going on in Holland, is trying to reintroduce animals from the first Ice Age, including woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. So that's just to give you a little taste of what you'll be reading and seeing in Emma Maris. Some of these projects are most of the projects she considers are very compelling. So anyway, that was my short way of saying, focus on the material the next 2 weeks, focus on what you find interesting, and then keep all this stuff about research in the back of your mind, and we will revisit it in earnest at a later point and make good use of all that Chris has shared with us today. Okay. So I think that's everything. Oh, is Chris gone? I was going to thank him. That's so weird. Chris. God damn, he just dropped out. Okay, whatever. Oh, well. I'll thank him. Okay, that's it, everybody, okay? I just wanted to have this session with you. This is recorded, and I'm going to post that PowerPoint on Canvas for you all, and we will revisit this. Ideally, I think I'm going to revisit with you each individually as you prepare for your final papers so that we can go through this. Maybe for some of you, there was a lot of stuff you've seen before. I always find that students are a lot better equipped for Boolean searches than I am. And so hopefully stuff you're savvy about. But I'm going to meet with you and talk to you further about these things, because I also have I have some good ideas about concrete ways to make this research work for your final papers. Okay. So that's all I have planned for today. You have your personal narratives that will be due by the end of the day. And I'm going to stick around if anybody wants to chat. And otherwise, I will just see you all later. Okay. I'll see you next week. Read that Emma Maris book, and we'll talk about that next week.
Have a good one.
Bye. See you, everybody.
Yeah. I have
Hi, Rachel.
hi, Furman. Is